out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you. I've been wanting to do this for a minute because I promised Mr. Z and also Dr. Johnson I would actually put this particular one up. I got one more to do like this after this. But let us go ahead and get started. This is coming from Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks. Black Women and Feminism. And the reason I'm doing this is because Bell Hooks is saying what I think a lot of black feminists and black women actually believe. Bell Hooks is actually saying it. Black feminists actually believe this, consciously. And I think a lot of black women actually believe and feel this unconsciously. So I'm going to read the highlighted portions as best I can and try to keep this at a minimum, okay, so it doesn't take too long. All right, this is starting with page 88, and this is talking about the early 20th century, right after, really late 19th century, early 20th century, right after emancipation. At no time in the early part of the 20th century were any large numbers of black men raping white women or seeking illicit relationships with them. Joseph Washington Jr.'s study of interracial union, marriage in black and white, documents the fact that black men who sought relationships with white women were eager for marriage. White people were never reacting to any high incidents of interracial rape during Reconstruction. They simply wanted to prevent interracial marriage. That's what she believes. They used lynchings, castrations, and other brutal punishments to prevent black men from initiating relationships with white women. They perpetuated the myth that all black men were equal to rape white women so that white females would not seek friendships with black men for fear of brutal assault. The horrific nature of violent attacks on black men caused historiographers and sociologists to assume that whites feared unions between white women and black men most. In the case of black women, skipping down, and white men, interracial sex was both encouraged and condoned as long as it did not lead to marriage. But by perpetuating the myth that all black women were incapable of fidelity and sexually loose, whites hoped to devalue them, that no white man would marry a black woman. After manumission, white men who treated black women with respect or sought to integrate a black family into a respectable white society were persecuted and ostracized. There's more to it, but, like I said, I want to keep this short. Lower class white men who had little sexual contact with black women during slavery were encouraged to believe that they were entitled to access the bodies of black women. That is probably true. I have to agree with it there. In large cities, their lust for black female sex objects led to the formation of numerous houses of prostitution which supplied black bodies to meet the growing demands of white men. The myth that perpetuated by whites that black women were the possessors of a heightened sexuality encouraged white male rapists and sexual exploiters. This myth so dominated the psyches of whites that Southern white male writer asserts. I knew all about the sexual act, but not until I was 12 years old did I know that it was performed with white women for pleasure. I had only thought that only Negro women engaged in the act of love with white men just for fun. because they were the only ones with the animal desire to submit that way. All right. Racial integration in the latter part of the 20th century caused many barriers against interracial marriages to be torn down, yet the amalgamation of races that sociologists have predicted might take place did not occur. While black men married white women in ever-increasing numbers, large numbers of white men did not marry black women. That's her angst. That's her angst right there. White men did not marry black women. These differences in responses were no accident. While changes in public attitudes toward black men had occurred, there had not been any change in negative images of black women. The myth that all black men were rapists had ceased to dominate the consciousness of the American public by the 70s. Skipping down. Given that power in capitalist patriarchal America is in the hands of white men, the present obvious threat to white solidarity is intermarriage between white men and non-white women, in particular black women. As whites have been much more voyeuristically, phobically interested in sexual relations between white women and black men, the existence of rigid social taboos prohibiting white male marriage to black females is often totally ignored. Yet such taboos may prove to have far greater impact on our society than taboos against black male, white female mating. She's actually jealous. She uses Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which is Sidney Poitier, as an example of that. Explanations as to why marriages between white women and black men are more readily acceptable than marriages between white men and black women can be found in patriarchal sexual politics. Since white women represent a powerless group, so do them. When not allied with powerful white men, their marriage to black men is no great threat to existing white patriarchal rule. In our patriarchal society, if a wealthy white woman marries a black man, she legally adopts his status. Accordingly, a black woman who marries a white man adopts his status. She takes his name, and their children are his heirs. Consequently, if a large majority of that small group of white men who dominate decision-making bodies in American society were to marry black women, the foundation of white rule would be threatened. A complex system of negative myths, stereotypes, and daily socializes white men to regard black women as unsuitable marriage partners. In American history, white men have never sought to marry black women in great numbers as black men have sought to marry white women. Scholars have argued that since white men have always had free, unlimited access to the bodies of black women, they have seen no need to legitimize these relationships by marriage. The myth of white womanhood, folks, right there. It's not about that, it's about power. The myth of white womanhood. White men have failed to be serious in their relationships with the black woman in comparison to the seriousness of relationship between the black man and the white woman. I think that's it. That's all my highlighted text. This is just simply the myth of white womanhood. Okay. They want the same status. That's what it said. She legally adopts his status. In other words, in her mind, in feminist mind, men carry status. I always say that women look at men for their status, whether he's poor, whether he's good looking, whether he's rich. Status, right? Status counts. That's why marrying a man that's famous is more viable or more desired by women than a man marrying a woman. Because in a society, and she might be right about that, a woman adopts the status of the man rather than vice versa. And that's how come black women desire white men, not sexually, and sometimes not even about resource. A black woman who marries a white man, not has sex with him, not has his babies, but marries a white man, adopts his what? Status. And what do black women desire most of all? I don't care what they say. I don't care what class they come from. They desire to what? Have the status of white women. Especially what? Black feminists. She's saying it. She's saying it. She's saying it right there. She's saying it in no uncertain terms. The whole chapter goes on to talk about this, which is also why black feminists hate interracial marriage. Not because they don't want to do it, it's because they can't do it as well. That interracial sex that they're upset about. They don't give a damn about how many black men screw white women. If white women would never marry or never bring black men out in public, they'd have no problem with it. What the thing is that in their mind, especially with intersectional feminists, in their mind, sex between a black man and a white woman leads to marriage, whereas sex between a black woman and a white man doesn't. It's highlighted by 15% of black babies being born from the union of non-black men and others, and black women. Black women have this is just over 5 years, probably more than that, have 15% of their babies by non-black men, but they're actually married less than black men. Now, her facts are probably true. I can't doubt that. But the thing is that they will never claim that this is what they believe in. I may have to do a deeper dive, but I am going to try to make this short. Black women, especially black feminists, intersex feminists, are really concerned about their image. And they're really concerned about how white men see them. They're not concerned about how black men see them. They really could give a damn about how black men really see them. They don't really give a shit. They're concerned about their image to white men. That's like any comparison to wages, living standards is never compared to black men. The only thing that they're concerned about black men is that can you get me up to a white woman standard? And how can you intersect with white women in ways that we can't? It's a white womanhood in their own words, in bold statement in their own words. You can't make this shit up. Anyhow, with that, I'm going to bounce off of here. This is Beat Yourself, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.